Welcome to Experiments in Happiness with Michelle Lemus, the podcast for high achieving women who've checked all the boxes but still feel something's missing.
Let's start somewhere a little different today. Not with a problem to solve, not with something to fix, not with a version of you that needs improvement. Just a moment of imagination. Picture yourself somewhere in the future, 6 months from now, a year, 5 years, not in a fantasy life, not in a highlight reel, in a version of your real life that feels steadier. Things still happen there. You still get tired, you still have responsibilities, you still doesn't have everything figured out, but you feel lighter. Not because life is easier, but because you're no longer carrying what never belonged to you. You're calmer in your body, more honest with yourself, less exhausted by pretending you're fine when you aren't. And if you could reach back right now and say one thing to you, I don't think it would be advice. It wouldn't be a strategy. It wouldn't be a checklist. It would be something simple, almost tender. You don't have to keep living like this. Not as a judgment, not as a criticism, just as a reminder. And here's the thing most of us don't realize: we don't ignore our future selves because we don't care. We ignore them because we're busy being responsible. We do it politely. We do it logically. We do it in ways that look completely reasonable. We tell ourselves, now isn't a good time. I'll deal with that once this settles down. This isn't the season for big changes. And all of that sounds mature. It sounds grounded. It sounds like wisdom. But if you've lived long enough, you know this truth. Seasons don't neatly end. They stack. One responsibility rolls into the next. One hard thing finishes, and another quietly takes its place. One chapter closes, and another opens without pause. So the call keeps coming. And we keep silencing it with busyness, logic, and survival mode efficiency. Not because we don't hear it, but because slowing down long enough to listen feels risky. Because when life has required you to be strong for a long time, listening inward can feel destabilizing. What if you hear something you can't unhear? What if you realize you've outgrown something you're still responsible for? What if you admit you're tired in a way that rest alone won't fix? So instead, we stay functional, we stay capable, we stay focused on what's immediately required, and we promise ourselves we'll come back to that conversation later. But here's the reframe I want to offer today. Your future self isn't calling to pressure you. She's not standing there with crossed arms, waiting for you to finally get it together. She's not disappointed. She's calling to offer relief. And she's not asking for a big leap. She's not asking you to burn everything down. She's not asking you to reinvent yourself overnight. She's not demanding courage you don't have yet. She's asking for honesty. Honesty about what's draining you. Honesty about what you keep tolerating because it feels easier than changing it. Honesty about the parts of your life that technically work, but quietly cost you. She knows something important. Change doesn't start with massive action. It starts with acknowledgement, with telling the truth privately without immediately trying to fix it. And that's often the hardest part because many women have learned that acknowledging dissatisfaction is dangerous. It feels ungrateful. It feels dramatic. It feels like opening a door you won't be able to close. So instead, we minimize. It's not that bad. Other people have it worse. I should be able to handle this. And over time, that self minimizing becomes self abandonment. Not loud, not obvious, just quiet disconnection. This is how people lose touch with themselves, not through one big mistake, but through thousands of tiny moments where they choose endurance over honesty. And here's the cost no one really talks about. Ignoring yourself creates a background ache, a low-grade resentment you can't quite name, a restlessness that doesn't go away no matter how productive you are, a sense that you're living a life that works, but doesn't quite fit. You start to feel like you're living inside a structure that once made sense, but now feels too tight. And the longer you ignore that feeling, the quieter your own voice becomes. Not gone, just harder to hear. So let's pause here for a second, because this episode isn't about dramatic transformation. It's about contact. Your future self doesn't need you to answer everything. She doesn't need a 5-year plan. She doesn't need certainty. She needs you to answer one thing, one boundary you've been avoiding, one truth you've been minimizing, one desire you keep explaining away, one place where you've been telling yourself it's fine when it really isn't. This is where people get stuck because they think action has to be loud to matter. But the most life-changing decisions are often quiet. Sometimes it's just saying, I can't keep doing this exact thing in this exact way. Sometimes it's letting yourself want something without immediately shutting it down. Sometimes it's choosing not to abandon yourself today. And that's enough, because this is how futures are built, not through massive overhauls, but through tiny, ordinary moments of self-respect, moments that say, I matter too. I'm allowed to change. I'm allowed to want more than survival. Your future self doesn't magically appear one day because you finally earned her. She's built slowly through decisions that prioritize truth over endurance. And here's something I really want you to hear. She's not mad at you. She understands why you've been holding it together. She knows what it cost. She's not waiting for perfection. She's rooting for you. So let's turn this into something you can actually practice. For the next week, don't try to fix your life. Just listen. Once per day, ask yourself one of these questions and don't rush the answer. What am I tolerating that's quietly draining me? What do I keep postponing because it feels inconvenient to deal with? Where am I choosing survival over honesty? What truth keeps returning, even when I try to ignore it? Then, and this part matters, respond with one small action, not a plan, not a declaration, not a big move. Just one step that says, I heard you. That might look like setting a boundary you've been rehearsing in your head, saying no without over-explaining, giving yourself permission to stop pushing for one afternoon, admitting something to yourself without fixing it, or letting yourself want what you want. Your only job is to notice how it feels in your body afterward, not whether it solved everything, just whether it created even a fraction more space. Because that's how alignment returns, quietly, gradually, through contact. And if you're listening to this thinking, I don't even know what my future self would say, that's okay. That doesn't mean you're lost. It means you've been focused outward for a long time. The voice comes back when you give it room. So let me leave you with this. Your future self isn't asking you to become someone else. She's asking you to stop abandoning who you already are. She's not disappointed. She's still calling. The question isn't whether you're ready. It's whether you're willing to answer just once today. And we'll keep experimenting because happiness isn't found in finally arriving somewhere else. It's found in choosing yourself right where you are.
Thanks for listening to Experiments in Happiness. You can find more tools and resources at experimentsinhappiness.com.